Welcome. Welcome back to the District 71 finals. Mm? Mm? Did you notice anything different? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I changed my outfit because this is a final, and as any respectable final, we all do outfit changes. Do you like it? Mm-hmm. So, what is District 71 final means UK and Ireland, Ireland and UK. And this is the afternoon session, so we are going to have a special guest shortly, so stay tuned. And we are going to have the evaluation final with Madam Contest Chair Patricia Foley and the international speech final with Mr. Contest Chair Pat Caslin. Did you have a nice lunch? I hope you did it. So get a comfy position, grab a pillow, lie down on the bed, do not fall asleep, okay? And enjoy. We are going to share 12 more talents with you. What an opportunity! For who doesn't know me, my name is Gaia Cilento, and I would like to virtual welcome on the stage our district director, John Cox. John Cox, the stage is yours.
Thank you much, Gaia. That was a great introduction. That's fabulous. I'm going to employ you in the future, I think, for introducing me. It's my privilege this afternoon to introduce Chief Executive Officer of Toastmasters International, Mr. Daniel Rex. And I would first of all like to say how much we appreciate him giving us some of his time today from what I know must be an extremely busy schedule. He's certainly traveled a few thousand miles in the last day via Zoom. Dan Rex heads up the team at Toastmasters World Headquarters, who provide resources and support to each of us as one of the 358,000 members of one or more of the 16,800 clubs in 143 countries across the globe. He has worked for Toastmasters for 29 years, and having led several departments during that time, he has huge knowledge and understanding of our organization and of our individual member needs. Dan took over as Chief Executive Director in 2008, with the role title being changed to Chief Executive Officer in 2013. He's going to give us his presentation this afternoon, and could I please ask you to put any questions that you'd like to go to Dan into chat. So I would take no more of his time. Please welcome Chief Executive Officer of Toastmasters International, Mr. Dan Rex.
John, thank you so very much. It is a pleasure to be with District 71 today. I had looked forward to being with you in person this year, and unfortunately, as we all know, things are different. But thanks so much for allowing me to join you and share a few of my thoughts. I have an Irish friend, one who is a member of District 71, and for the longest time, he has chatted with me and shared with me what he would call Irish idioms or Irish blessings. And one of them that I remember very well is, may you live in interesting times. Oh my goodness, are these interesting times. 2020 is a year that for most of us is like no other. And I've come to describe this year with 3 words. They are unusual, terrible, and beautiful. It's an unusual time. How many of us last year at the District 71 conference could have prophesied that today we would be joining this meeting by Zoom? I think we would have been laughed out of the hall. And yet here we are. In the last couple of months, we've figured out how to conduct Zoom meetings, and we're having a conference over 2 weekends with a myriad of speeches and presentations and business being conducted and elections and all those things that we were so accustomed to doing in person. Another thing that's unusual for me is that sometime near the end of March, I went to the market and I put on one of these. It felt very, very strange at the time, but now it seems strange if I go out and I don't have one. And as I sat down at my desk this morning, I thought maybe I should put on a mask. I would ask you to start entering into the chat things that you believe are unusual about this year, things that you've experienced. They're just a little bit unusual so that we can share these happenings with each other. Now, I've never been a proponent of a work from home style of work, and yet here we are. I haven't been in my office for 2 months. My Toastmaster pin that should be on this lapel is in my office drawer. Don't have it here. I don't know what the future holds. It's very unusual for me to do this, but I've had to adjust and grow my personal leadership style to accommodate. On a more personal note, my two university age sons have moved back in with me and my wife, and they're taking their classes from home. What an odd time and a nice time to be able to spend more hours with them than we would have before. This year is also terrible. The virus that has infected the world has taken the lives of so many and dramatically and negatively affected the lives of others. It is difficult for us to understand, and I think only in the future will we understand the impact on our economies, the way we work, and on our families. Low demand has sent fuel prices plummeting. Prices in the United States are where they were in the early 1980s. Maybe we'll start to think about climate change and our carbon footprint a little bit more because of this. On the flip side, high demand for consumer goods has sent prices in the US for a 1 month increase of more than 6%, something that hasn't happened since 1974. And unfortunately, if you listen to the news, there is a huge amount of rhetoric, untruths, and misinformation being spread about what's happening in our world today. And the mental health toll that all of these scare tactics are taking is unaccounted for, but difficult for people. Well, on to the beautiful. How is this affecting us in a beautiful way? Well, here we are on Zoom. Here we are on Zoom. School teachers have had to understand and learn how to teach from a distance. They found new ways to connect with and teach their students. Technology solutions are leaping forward. Zoom is an example. The other day, I ordered from the market online, drove my car to the parking lot, and they brought it out and put the order in the back of my car. I wouldn't have tried that a few months ago, but that is becoming the new normal. Cooperation and collaboration are skyrocketing. And in fact, there are Toastmasters around the world who are making these masks and are sharing them with our Toastmasters friends. I've authorized a few of them to have the Toastmasters branding on the front. I was a little concerned about that, but I thought this is a year of firsts. Let's go ahead and do it. So if you happen to see those, they're probably authorized through our trademarks team. Well, what about understanding and patience? I have seen some beautiful examples of understanding and patience. A week or so ago, I was at a market. I was waiting in the queue out front, and I saw an elderly lady approach. She realized that there were 25 people waiting to get in, and she turned and began to walk back away from the store. There was a young man who was managing the queue, and he walked over to her. They chatted for a moment, and he walked her to the front of the queue, and she entered the store first. Our friends who were in line applauded for the young man who made the right decision to allow someone to go ahead of the rest of us. Now, there may have been those who were upset, but at least they kept it to themselves. In the US, there are food banks where those who are unable to buy their own food are able to go and receive food for free. The demand on these food banks has been extremely high. And in the beginning, they were depleted, almost to no food at all. But since then, through the goodness and generosity of others, those food banks have been restored and people are able to feed their families. So there are beautiful things happening in this time of crisis. And I know that we have all experienced those in some way or another. What about the world of Toastmasters? How are we doing? How are Toastmasters clubs around the world functioning? Well, as this crisis began and spread through central China in February, I began to hear from members there about their club meetings. In a very short amount of time, perhaps less than 2 weeks, the clubs went from meeting in person to not meeting at all to immediately meeting online. What an amazing thing, and what a fantastic transformation. And in a natural but still very odd happening, as the virus spread throughout the world and around the globe, Toastmasters modified itself and innovated and began meeting online. It's been a beautiful thing to watch. We've acquired an immense amount of new skill. I see our friend Eddie, who is managing all the meeting today as the Zoom master. I don't know if Eddie had these skills before or not, but he's very good. I've seen a lot of Zoom meetings in the last month, and he is quite good at getting us around. Well, how about our club meetings? Timing online, asking table topics questions online, evaluating online. All of these things have modified the way that we function. And as Toastmasters, we have evolved very, very quickly. Last week at my club meeting, and at this club when we met in person, we had 22, 25 people in person. Last week online, we had 38. There were guests from across our country and around the world. We have a new role for our club officers. It is called the club sheriff. And the club sheriff is responsible for properly managing the Zoom meeting, for welcoming guests, and if there's ever any bad behavior, immediately removing that person from the meeting. We haven't had any bad behavior yet, I am happy to report, but we are prepared. None of this happened easily or overnight, though 2 weeks is a fairly overnight occurrence in the Toastmasters world. It's taken a lot of hard work and dedication, but most of all, commitment to the cause, commitment to the Toastmasters community, commitment to the Toastmasters movement that Dr. Smedley founded all those years ago. It is humbling and amazing to see what you and other members and clubs around the world have done. Toastmasters is typically counter-cyclical to the economy. In the last 25 years, if there's been an economic downturn, Toastmasters clubs flourish. People tend to look for new skills, better networking, and opportunities for connections that could lead them to a new career, new employment. Well, that happened when we met in person. How is it going to work this time? If you haven't yet, please make sure that your club goes to the Club Central page on the Toastmasters website and enters your online meeting information so that guests can attend your meeting. More than 75% of the people who join Toastmasters worldwide report that they do so through the Find a Club page on the main website. So please update your information there so that you can get guests. Nearly 70% of clubs worldwide have let us know that they are conducting their meetings online, and that is quite an amazing thing. Overall, in March and April, the Toastmasters world slowed down. In fact, membership payments and the number of members decreased by nearly 35% in the calendar year, January through March. That has since rebounded. And globally now, we're just slightly over a 10% decrease. In any other year, a 10% decrease would be shocking. It would be frightening. But in this year, 10% is pretty good, given what's going on in the world. As Toastmasters, we are leaders. We are leaders of ourselves. We are leaders of our clubs. We might lead an area, a division, or a district. We are leaders in our family. We are leaders in our communities. We might be leaders at work. We have these amazing opportunities to lead. And leadership requires a demonstration of character and a demonstration of a sense of self. And as leaders, I wonder how we are acting. Who is the leader that we are portraying? Do we inspire confidence to our team? Do we inspire strength and stability to our team? Or are we constantly worried, and do we share these worries? I think in a year like this, being worried, being at unease, and having negative emotions is completely normal. But how we are with our team members is an extremely important thing. And I would encourage all of us to work to portray the leadership persona to our teams that our teams need. In closing, I'll relate a quick experience and ask you to write down 2 words. A couple of weeks ago, I was on a call with some colleagues at the University of Cambridge in the UK. And the lecturer was talking to us about this pandemic. And she asked us to write down one word that described how this time has positively affected us. One word. So please do that. Jot down one word that describes how this time has positively affected you. And then next, she asked us to jot down one word that describes how this time has negatively impacted us or challenged us. Now, in the group of people that I was online with on that day, the positive impact were things like technological innovation, two words, unfortunately, resilience, patience. And the challenge words, the negative words, were isolation or depression. And someone wrote just carbohydrates, which I think was an indication of stress eating. Well, it's important for us to recognize who we are and how we are at this point in time. As leaders and as Toastmasters, I believe that we need to rise above, and that's my challenge to you today, to rise above in everything that you're doing, to rise above as your leaders have done with this conference and this beautiful event, to rise above in your personal life, to rise above in your community. This is a time when the world needs Toastmasters. John, back to you.
I'm looking to see what questions are. Apparently, there's lots of questions coming in on YouTube, but I don't have access to those at this moment in time. Just a quick one that I'd like to ask for you. What's been the biggest influence in your career, and how might that have changed in your time in Toastmasters?
I think I'll go back a little further. The biggest influences in my life have been my father and my grandfather. I had two mentors in my 20s that influenced my career the most. But I'll give an answer that may not surprise you. In 1993, I participated in starting a Toastmasters club, and I was the charter club president. That experience had a huge impact on me as a leader in ways that I didn't understand for years to come. Not surprising, living in this bubble of Toastmasters for 3 decades now, Toastmasters has been a dramatic influence on who I am. I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you very much. There's lots of questions coming in about the Distinguished Club program and how that might change in the future.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question, and the Distinguished Club program, especially this year, where everyone is challenged worldwide. I expect an announcement from the board of directors on that question in the next few days, certainly by the end of this coming week. It would be premature for me to speak about it today.
Okay. Clearly, the coronavirus is going to have quite a lot of impact on people's careers. Where do you see Toastmasters in supporting and helping that?
One of the most amazing things is that as we're developing these Zoom skills, these online meeting skills, and it's not just the technology, it's how to properly function. Gaia was amazing in bringing energy to a meeting where she was the only person in the room. My prediction of the future and the trends that I'm seeing right now is that office workers are going to spend an enormous amount of time in the future on these types of meetings. Toastmasters is going to bring that experience and those skills to our members that can then use those in the office.
Thank you. Do you have any advice for us on how to encourage guests that come onto Zoom programs to actually join? Because I think that's a whole different challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing because we're not accustomed to asking people to join by Zoom. We're accustomed to chatting with them at the end of the meeting and having that conversation. But the fascinating thing is they don't know that it has ever been any other way, right? The guests are new to the situation completely. So as whichever club officer is responsible for that in your club, have a conversation with them, share a PDF file with them, explain to them how to join, ask them to join, and here's the process and here are the fees. That's working phenomenally well. I was just chatting with a club in China earlier this week, and they said that for them, it was a shift in mindset on the club's part.
Are we seeing many new members joining since we've been on Zoom?
Yeah, we are. We're slower than we were last year, as is to be expected, but absolutely. Gosh, I don't have a count, but it's about 70% of normal. So that's quite good.
That's very positive. I mean, we've certainly seen 2 or 3 people join the clubs that I'm involved with, so
Yeah.
it's certainly working. It's certainly working. Just seeing, yeah, there's a question here about we seem to be attracting a different kind of membership, but in a positive way. Are we seeing maybe a different kind of membership coming on board?
Yeah, we don't have enough demographic data about the new members yet to have a full understanding of that, but we do believe that there will be perhaps a different kind of person who proactively reaches out and attends club meetings online rather than the person who would be more likely to go to an in-person meeting. So that could evolve during this time.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I don't know whether we have got any more time. I'm looking for some indication as to how long we've still got. 3 minutes, I think I've been told. Okay. So let's try and find some more questions for you. I had a really good question when I thought you were going to do your why do we do what we do, because I think most of us several times in our lives have actually asked that question of ourselves. Why am I doing this?
Yes.
Do you believe that we are masters of our own destiny, or does luck have a role to play?
Both. Absolutely both.
Absolutely
Both. And in some ways, we're masters of our own destiny. How we act in the present is how we create our own future. But there are times when we encounter opportunities, and if we're in the right place at the right time and we're prepared, then we can control more significantly our future. A few years back, I had one of the senior people I worked with leave the company, and a gentleman who worked for him came to me and said, I was going to take some more management leadership classes and get ready. I didn't think he was going to leave for a few more years. And to me, that was a great example. He wasn't ready. The young man was not ready for that next job. If he had prepared himself, he might have been. I think that it's our responsibility to be ready and to be able to grab the opportunities when they present themselves.
Yeah, I think that's that grabbing opportunities, isn't it? Because there's opportunities come at us from all different directions, and it's about taking
Absolutely.
that opportunity.
And there are times when we create opportunities, but there's so many variables in the world that we can't control them all. But we need to work hard on the ones we can control.
Here's a final question for you, I think. Is there any advice on how to start a new club whilst we're online?
Yeah, this is a very interesting one. And it really depends on who you're seeking to be members of this club. And how the recruitment process is going. We've seen more organization clubs, universities, and corporations who are forming online clubs right now. Sometimes some churches have been as well, where they have already established a community of people that they can draw from. Those seem to be the more direct ways of forming clubs online right now. And we're still seeing quite a few new clubs come in every month.
Okay, grand. Thank you. If I can thank you, Dan, for giving us your valuable time today and for giving us some insights into Toastmasters and how we might be changing in the future, and some great tips and ideas. Can I please call upon everybody to give him some virtual applause and thank him for coming?
Thank you very much, John, and everyone. It has been a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you, Dan, and enjoy your flight home.
John, if you would like to ask Dan one last question, just one last question, for having a little bit of more inspiration, that would be so great. Just the last one, and then we'll go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, Dan, about that.
Quite all right.
Can you tell me about a time when you solved a problem for your Toastmaster? Oh, I'm not sure how that works, that question. Oh, yes, being at a distance, I suppose. How do you resolve problems? Because that's going to be a challenge in itself, isn't it?
The last 2.5 months have provided innumerable opportunities to solve problems from a distance. And what I think is critical, and what I've experienced, is that the cooperation, collaboration, cohesion of the team that is working together is more important than it ever has been. And I've realized that my role in the last 9 weeks has been to care for the emotional health, the happiness of my distant team members, and provide the space and the encouragement and the direction for them to solve problems. The second to last week of March, the board of directors asked me to solve the problem about meeting online and speech contests worldwide. And I went to my team and I asked them to draft up a new set of rules for presentation to the board, and I gave them 24 hours to do it. And they scrambled like I've never seen them scramble before. It took us about 48 hours to be able to publish that document. But I very deliberately created a good place, a good team, and enabled them to work hard together. It wasn't about me being upset or pushing them hard. It was about them understanding the need in the moment and their desire to fill that need and solve that problem.
I think the thing I've found as well is that those people that are often in a normal face-to-face meeting are quite quiet, have actually become a lot more vocal when it's from a distance. So I've found greater participation and greater input from people than maybe we would have had in a face-to-face situation. Okay, Dan, thank you very much for that. I think I'm getting the thumbs up now, so we'll be moving on to
Guy is ready to go.
Thank you again,
Thanks
Dan.
again, all. Take care.
Great having you here. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank Dan. That was so inspiring. That's the reason why we wanted one last more question. Thank you very much. Thank you to John Cox as our district director, and thanks for Dan Rex directly from US as our CEO. Now, we are ready to go back into the competition. So, get a comfy position. It's still not so late to share the link with your neighbors, with your family, with your friends. Do it. Subscribe on the channel. Write a comment of encouragement for our contestants. Do it, do it, do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the third final. The third final is gonna be evaluation contest. So please give a warm virtual welcome to Patricia Foley. Patricia, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Tíobh gachtainna agus tá fáilte roimh go léir go dtí an ócáid anna speisialta seo. Tá suaille gom go mbainigh sibh an tainneamh as an tráthnóna. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to District Final 71 of the Evaluation Contest. I'm sure you're going to have a great afternoon. Evaluation is when we give a speaker feedback on their performance and give recommendations for further improvement. And that's what you will witness in this contest. I would like to wish all our contestants the very best of luck. It's no mean achievement to get to the final of any competition. I can confirm that the contestants have been briefed on the contest rules and Zoom. I'd now like to call on the Chief Judge, Garrod, to confirm that judges, counters and timers have been briefed.
Madam Contest Chair, wishing you the very best today and all the contestants the very best of luck as well. I can confirm that all judges, timers and counters have been briefed.
Thank you, Garrod. There was a draw for the order of speaking earlier, and I'll now call out the names in order for the judges. Contestant 1, Sam Warner. Sam Warner. Contestant 2, Jenny Britt. Jenny Britt. Contestant 3, Colm McGlade. Colm McGlade. Contestant 4, Jordan Vickery. Jordan Vickery. Contestant 5, Kyle Murtha. Kyle Murtha. Contestant 6, Nikki Brown. Nikki Brown. I'll run through them quickly once again. Contestant 1, Sam Warner. Contestant 2, Jenny Britt. Contestant 3, Colin McGlade. Contestant 4, Jordan Vickery. Contestant 5, Kyle Murtha. And contestant 6, Nikki Brown. I'll now outline the time requirements and timing signals, and I'll ask the timer to demonstrate as I call them out. Evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the green signal will be displayed and will remain on for 30 seconds. At 2 minutes, 30 seconds, the yellow signal will be displayed and remain on for 30 seconds. At 3 minutes, the red signal will be displayed and remain on until the contestant has completed the evaluation. The contestant will then have 30 seconds to finish up. If a contestant speaks for less than 1 minute 30 seconds or longer than 3 minutes 30 seconds, that contestant will be disqualified. Timing starts with the first definite verbal or non-verbal communication with the audience. If there is a disqualification, it will be announced before the results of the competition, but the name of the disqualified contestant will not be announced. I would ask you all to treat this contest as if it was a live contest where there would be absolute silence. You might inadvertently turn on your sound, and if there was any background noise where you are, it could be a distraction to the contestants. So please be careful about this. When the contest starts, I will call contestant 1. I will ask the contestant to check their sound and video. I will remind them to pin the counter if they wish, and I will ask the contestant to do a sound check. I will then confirm that I can see and hear the contestant and ask them if they are ready to start. Only then will I introduce the contestant by naming them twice. We will now have our test speech. The time for this speech is 5 to 7 minutes. Our test speaker is Asel Boyzanova, with a speech entitled, "What's Your Favorite Song?" With a speech entitled, "What's Your Favorite Song?" I now welcome Asel Boyzanova.
Oh, I see my friend from Kazakhstan, Asel Boyzanova. Tell us, what is your favorite song? I heard a familiar voice. I was so startled to hear my name that I nearly jumped out of my seat. Thankfully, I had my answer. The song was "Strangers in the Night" by Frank Sinatra. The familiar voice belonged to our warm-hearted fellow Toastmaster, Nick Lacani, who was hosting a contest in the UK at District 71, Division D. Then, a few weeks later, I went to another contest, a contest in Division H. He startled me with the same question again, and I had my answer. The song was "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong. To be honest, I know only these two songs by heart in English. If you wake me up in the middle of the night, "Hey, wake up." Huh? Sing me a song. I would sing them without hesitation. Why is that? I hear you asking. Fellow Toastmasters and dear guests, Many years ago, when I was a student on my 7-day winter break, my relatives invited me to visit them in a city in northeastern Kazakhstan. My uncle and his wife picked me up at the train station in their spacious, warm jeep. Through the window, I could see that the scenery was dazzling. Everything was covered in a blanket of fluffy snow. There were ice statues of different animals and characters of fairy tales scattered around. In the sunlight, they sparkled like diamonds. But it was cold. It was so cold. If you stood outside any longer, you would freeze and become one of the statues. In the car, we talked about what we were going to do while I was with them. The plans seemed fun, but the next day, a blizzard hit and we were stuck at home for the whole week. There was no internet back then. Spending time with my relatives and reading books was the only way to pass the time. When I was helping my aunt with cleaning, I discovered something interesting, something that I had never seen before, a karaoke machine. I was so amazed that my voice sounded when I used the microphone. But mostly, I was curious about the scoring system that rated my singing. And I got so obsessed with getting the highest score. The machine had lots of Russian songs and only 2 English songs. And can you guess what those songs were? I kept singing them over and over, and I didn't move from that machine for hours. My relatives came to that room and checked on me from time to time. They looked like they pitied me. I had bags under my eyes, and I almost lost my voice. I didn't know that I already had the unbeatable spirit of a Toastmaster. I tried pace, vocal variety, and even gestures. Finally, I learned that to get the highest score, I just needed to be loud. Imagine what my lovely relatives were experiencing, having me shouting in a foreign language all day long. When I was leaving, they said that they would miss me. But their faces said the opposite. They looked very happy. What can you learn from my story? Firstly, don't invite me to visit you. Seriously. If you are stuck at home because of a blizzard or because of COVID-19, you can always find something constructive to do. Be curious, and you might develop some new skills like cooking, knitting, or singing. Next, whatever you set your mind to, do it with gusto. Be loud and proud about what you are doing. And lastly, do you know how many weekends are in a year? 52. Learn 52 songs, because if our fellow Toastmaster Nick Lahani is going to invite you to his after party every weekend, you want to be sure he will ask, tell us, what is your favorite song? Contest chair.
Thank you very much, Assel. I enjoyed that immensely. Thank you. Could the timer please give us the time for the speech now, please?
Seven minutes, 28 seconds.
Thank you very much. I would now ask the Sergeant at Arms to accompany the contestants into the breakout room. They will have 5 minutes to write up their notes. The Sergeant at Arms will then tell them when the 5 minutes is up and they will stop writing. They will remain in the breakout room until the Sergeant at Arms tells each contestant in turn to rejoin the main room.
Madam Contest Chair, this is the Zoom Master. All of the evaluation contestants and the Sergeants at Arms are now in the breakout room.
Thank you very much. Timer, could I ask you to give me 5 minutes, please, and give me the green signal at 3 minutes, the yellow signal at 4 minutes, and the red signal at 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to read a little story for you, which I hope you will enjoy. It's called The Note. Jimmy O'Neill was a rascal. Everybody said so. His mother, who spent a lot of her time chasing him with a wooden spoon, said so. The parish priest, who had caught Jimmy climbing up the big bronze statue of St. Peter outside the church, he said so. But mostly his teacher, Mr. Feeney, who despaired of ever being able to beat any learning into Jimmy's thick skull, he said so. Jimmy didn't want to learn anything. His future was decided. He was going to be a milkman, just like his dad. And other than being able to count the bottles of milk and add up what everyone owed him, what else did he need to know? Mr. Feeney didn't see it that way. He was always going on about how wonderful it was to have a love of learning. Jimmy thought to himself that learning hadn't done Mr. Feeney much good. He didn't even have a car. The backside of his navy trousers were all shiny, and he had patches on the elbows of his shabby tweed jacket. No, thought Jimmy, he can keep his learning. I'm going to make some real money. It was a lovely sunny morning as Jimmy straggled his way to school, dragging his school bag on the ground behind him. He would have loved to go down to the river and throw stones in to see how far he could get the stones to skim across the water. But he couldn't risk missing a second day from school because Owl Feeney might get in touch with his mam, and she'd kill him if she knew he was on the Mitch again. When the bell rang, Jimmy took his place at the back of the class and listened as the roll was called by sliding down in his seat. There was silence in the room as Owl Feeney took off his John Lennon glasses and peered down at Jimmy. Ah, Mr. O'Neill, I see you've decided to grace us with your presence. He talked funny like that all the time. And what rare disease were you stricken down with this time? A ripple of laughter went around the class because Jimmy was famous for his brilliant excuses for his absences. He had once told the teacher that he had a touch of bubonic plague, and his mum thought it would be a good idea for him to stay at home for the day. I suppose, said Feeney, that you've a note from your mother for yesterday's absence. I have, said Jimmy. And indeed he had, but his mother hadn't written it. He had spent hours trying to forge his mother's writing from a shopping list that he'd found in the back of the drawer, and he was very proud of the final article. He handed the note to Mr. Feeney. After taking some time to read it, Feeney looked at Jimmy and said, I want to see your mother tomorrow. You've been on the mitch again, haven't you? Jimmy stared at him in amazement. How did he know? Some of the lads said that Feeney had X-ray eyes and he could see right into your head and he knew what you were thinking. Jimmy's mum came to the school the next day, just as the bell rang for home time. She didn't say much when she came out, just wait till your father gets home. When Dad came home, Mum opened her bag and took the note that Mr. Feeney had given her. Dad read it. He looked down at Jimmy, trying very hard not to laugh, and he said, Jimmy, you're a right idiot. He left the note on the kitchen table and went out. Jimmy picked it up, wondering what was wrong with it, and he read it out loud. Dear Mr. Feeney, Jimmy fell down the stairs yesterday. He broke his 2 legs and fractured his skull, so I kept him in bed for the day. Signed, Mammy. Thank you very much. We're now ready to start our contest. Can we have contestant 1, please? Contestant 1, are you ready?
They're on the way, Madam Contest Chair. Just bear with us a moment.
Contestant 1. Can you turn on your sound, please? Turn on your sound. Thank you. Could you do a sound?
I keep trying to turn my sound on. Yeah, it's on now. Thanks.
Can you do a short sound check for me, please?
Yeah, can you confirm that Heidi is the timer I'm pinning?
Heidi is.
Thank you.
Yes.
And your lights are up in the corner. Contestant 1, I can hear you and I can see you. Our contestant number 1 is Sam Warner. Sam Warner.
What a beautiful speech from Assel. I don't know Assel, but oh goodness me, I could listen to her all day. I loved her gestures. I loved the way that she moves. I loved everything about it. So let me walk you through what I noticed. So what did I see? I saw great eye contact. She was into us. I felt like she was speaking directly to me. I loved the fact that she knew her space. So her gestures were all contained in the space for us. Really nicely done. She also was very specific about her gestures. She used her hands to suggest the cold. She used her gestures when she was speaking, but not all the time. So it wasn't a noise in the way. It really added to what she was presenting. You know, I couldn't see any sign of nerves, so I don't know if she did feel that way. She looked really comfortable, really relaxed, and she was well lit with a good background. And I loved her use of her prop microphone, just out of shot, there for when she needed it. Really beautifully done. Well, what did I hear? Well, she had a great pace, I've mentioned before, beautiful, lovely pauses. When you have an accent of any kind, slowing down and allowing us to take in what you've said is the real gift for the audience. With beautiful vocal variety and a great change in her voice when she was doing dialogue, which I really, really loved. And she had lovely descriptive words. A spacious, warm jeep. Scenery was dazzling, sparkled like diamonds. She was painting pictures with her words for us to see. It was just magical. Really, really lovely. Now I have a recommendation for Asil for this here section of my evaluation. And I think, even though this was a really great speech, if she wanted to amp it up to spectacular, she could really start us off with perhaps a bit of music played, actual music that would have really grabbed us. Maybe a medley of 4 or 5 songs, just little snippets, would have really grabbed us and gone, oh, hang on a minute, she's playing music. What a way to start. Now, what did I feel? Do you know, I loved the rhetorical questions. It really made me think. She asked me, can you guess what those songs were? What can you learn from my story? And I loved that because she asked of us something that we had to sit there and think about what she was saying, not just be passive and just let it wash over us. It's a really great way of bringing us in as the audience members. And I felt that her conclusion was really, really clear as well. There was a call to action. She had some really good points for us to take away and do something with it. I really loved that. So in summary, I love the way Asil squeezed every second out of the speech. The time was just perfect. It was unhurried, beautifully placed, and by adding some actual songs at the beginning, it would have knocked it out of the park. So thank you very much, Asil. Beautiful. Contest Chair.
Thank you very much, Sam. And we'll now have 1 minute for the judges to complete their ballots.
Time.
Thank you. Contestant number 2. Can you pin the timer, please?
I can see a white screen for Dinah, the timer. Is that correct?
Yes. I can see you. I can hear you. You're ready now to start. Our second contestant is Jenny Britt. Jenny Britt.
If music be the food of love, play on, says William Shakespeare. Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests, especially Asil, whose speech I have the pleasure to evaluate here today. She inspired us with music today, trying to ask us to be curious, to develop new skills in all this time that we may have on our hands right now. How did she inspire us to do that in this speech? Well, first off, we could understand her perfectly. We could hear that beautiful, clear voice, that lovely slow pace. I heard every single word, especially when she was singing, which was lovely and added a real dynamic to the speech. We can hear her, we can understand. Check 1. What is she saying to us? She's giving us a personal story. She's drawing us in, which is wonderful because it really helps us to connect with her and what she's saying. And it was beautifully told. There are a couple of ways I think that Asil could have a greater impact with her speech. The first was with her use of gestures. She had a few nice ones, but I was worried occasionally because I could see this, just tips of fingers at the bottom of the screen. Now, that's partly because of how the screen was positioned. So I would encourage us all to consider either changing her position so she's like me and you can see the hips, you can see all the arms, and you can gesture at will. Or if you are going to be lower down, use higher gestures, like when she's singing, say, oh, and you can use a gesture there. That would be one way to ensure we get the full impact of the gestures that she's showing to us to highlight the points that she's making. Another way I feel she could improve the impact of her message is to give us a few more hints earlier on what it might be. It took a while for me to figure out where this story was going, and I was intrigued, but she could have given us little hints earlier on, like at the start when she's talking about singing and doing karaoke. She could have talked about that as a skill, which would then link back in to talking about skill later on when she brings it in at her conclusion. My favourite thing about her speech, though, was her wonderful use of very articulate language. She had some wonderful phrases and rhetorical devices. She talked about sparkling like diamonds. She had a lovely description of dazzling scenery, the spacious warm Jeep, and at the end talking about loud and proud and gusto. Lovely, lovely use of phrases, which really makes it interesting for us as an audience. In summary, then, I think that this was a beautiful, joyous speech, which had lovely, clear, steady voice for us to understand, a lovely personal story to draw us in, could have kept her gestures more in shot to help us have more impact with them, could have included a bit more reference to her message earlier on at the beginning of the speech to help tie it all together. But what beautiful, beautiful language in that personal story she sold. And I loved her singing voice, and I am going to take a tip from her right now. All I have to say to you, Assel, is you're simply the best. Contest chair.
Thank you very, very much, Jenny. And we will give the judges 1 minute to complete their ballots. Thank you. Contestant number 3.
Madam Contest Chair, contestant number 3 is not with us yet, if you bear with us a moment.
Sure. I see you now, contestant number 3. Can you turn on your sound, please? Now, contestant number 3, could you give me a sound check, please?
Yes, I can give you a sound check. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you and I can see you. Are you ready to start?
I want to pin the timer. How do I pin the timer? Oh, yes, I see the timer.
It's right up at the top.
Yes.
Are you ready to start?
The timer is just white. I presume green.
The colors, yes.
Oh, they'll come up on time. That's great. Okay. No, I'm ready to go.
Are you ready to start? Yes. Contestant number 3 is Colm McGlade. Colm McGlade.
Learn a song a day for 52 weeks in the year, or a song a week. What a very relevant message to give to us during this lockdown period. Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and particularly Assel. Assel, first of all, let me say I really enjoyed your speech here today. It was very relevant for the situation we find ourselves in now, comparing ourselves to your story and to your life during lockdown in Pakistan during the blizzard.
What did I like the way you delivered your speech? Well, I liked the way you came across as a very warm, friendly person. And of course, that's so important when a speaker is speaking to an audience, because you want to build a positive relationship. And if you build a positive relationship with your audience and that friendly personality comes through, the audience will accept what you're saying. I love the steady pace with which you spoke. It was easy to follow because you didn't go too fast. And sometimes people, when English is not their first language, we can lose what they're saying because of this. And you had a good steady pace throughout. I love the use of the visual. You understand the importance of the visual. You smiled a lot during your presentation. Your facial expressions were animated. They were friendly. They reflected what you were saying. And this is so important in building a connection with the audience. I loved also your use of hands during it. And you used your hands very, very well on occasions. You spoke about the bags under your eyes and you lost your voice and singing with gusto. So you understand the power of the visual. I love the language that you used. You used some great language to paint vivid pictures for us. Dazzling scenery, sparkled like diamonds. How could you improve? While you did speak, Assel, at the same pace throughout, if you speak at the same pace all the time, that can become a little bit monotonous on the ear. I would advise that you try and vary your pace. For example, when you were going for the train to Kakistan, maybe try and inject a little bit more excitement into it and a little bit more pace into it, and then maybe slow it down later on when you were talking about cooking, knitting, singing, which was also a great example of a triad. You told a story, but your characters didn't have names. There was no real dialogue in the story. If you want to bring a story to life, you have to have flesh and blood characters. And the way to have flesh and blood characters is to give them names and bring dialogue into it, to bring more life into the story. However, overall, Assel, I think you have many fine attributes as a speaker. You're a very friendly, warm person, and that comes across well in your speaking. You spoke at a good, steady pace, although I'd like to see you inject more excitement into the pace at times. You painted great pictures for us, and you smiled throughout. Well done, Assel.
Thank you very much. And we'll now have a minute's silence for the judges. Thank you, timer. And now we come to our fourth contestant. Can you pin the timer, please, up in the top left of your screen?
Yeah, done.
Okay. Would you give me a short sound check, please?
Can you hear me?
I can, and I can see you.
Good.
Are you ready to start?
I am.
Contestant number 4 is Jordan Vickery. Jordan Vickery.
What's your favourite song? Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters and the viewers on YouTube. Azul took us on a personal, insightful and in some parts humorous story from her time in a Toastmasters club here in the UK all the way to Kazakhstan. So what did Azul do to make this a great speech? Well, one of the great things about this speech was her use of story, starting with the question she was asked by Nick here in the UK, and then taking us to Kazakhstan, where she learned how to sing the only 2 songs in English on a karaoke machine. Now, this use of story really helped to contextualize the points that she was going to make later in the speech. Instead of leading with the 3 points that she made later on, she started with a story. And this helped to engage the audience. It helped to prime us for the points that were coming later and helped to add some relevance and context to what she was saying. Another great thing about this speech was her use of descriptive language. For example, the sun shimmering like diamonds and the snow statues out in the fields. And this really helped to bring her story to life and add some colour in our imaginations. And when you're telling the story, this is so important, because telling the story is one thing, but making the audience feel like they are there in the story with you in Kazakhstan, feeling the sun coming down, seeing the snow statues in front of you is a whole different thing altogether. So what can Azul do to improve as a speaker and to improve this speech? Well, one of the things that I felt throughout this speech was that I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And eventually, just as the orange light came on, we got the 3 points, the reason for the speech and the story. Now, I felt like these 3 points were maybe lacking in strength and impact. So how could we improve those? We could have used stronger points. For example, trying new things that you might not have done before. Karaoke is something I would never do, and trying that would terrify me. That could be a point for the audience. Or maybe even the importance of personal experience and being able to draw on that and able to answer questions and deliver speeches. Another thing that I felt could improve the speech would be Azul's use of her area. She was sat down delivering her speech, and as such, I felt like the energy was maybe lacking in parts. By standing up, she could have brought the story to life in parts where she was singing in the karaoke bar and walking through the scenery of Kazakhstan. Altogether, I felt like this speech was a great story with a fantastic use of descriptive language to bring it to life and make us feel like we were part of it. The thing that was missing for me was the impact. As speakers, it's our job to leave a lasting impression and an impact on our audience. It's our job to make sure that they take something away from the time that we spend with them, the time that we're speaking. And if I was to improve this speech, that would be the one area that I would focus on. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Jordan. We now have 1 minute for the judges to mark their ballots. Thank you very much, timer. Our 5th contestant. Can you pin the timer, please?
Yes, I've pinned the timer, Pat.
Right. I can see you, Kyle, and I can hear you. Are you ready to start?
I am ready.
And contestant number 5 is Kyle Murtha. Kyle Murtha.
Don't allow me to visit you. When Azul said that, I knew we had a lot in common. Contest chair, ladies and gents, one of the things which I loved most about this speech was the imagery Azul created. When she was talking about that person asking her, "What's your favorite song?" I felt like I was there. When she was describing the beautiful scenery of Kazakhstan while looking for the train, I felt like I was there. And that's a sign of a great speaker. A person who can take us from where we are as an audience to where they want us to go. Fantastic. Her body language was also excellent. Eye contact, spot on, looking at the camera, building a connection with us. Her gestures complemented her words perfectly. And her voice was so gentle and smooth. It just drew you in. But what I loved most of all was how this speech was a personal story. And that instantly makes your speech unique, made Azul's speech unique, because no one has a story like her. And we had that great message at the end of doing things with gusto, being proud and loud, a message which adds value in this time. In terms of points for improvement, I have two for Azul. The first one would be the speed of her voice. Although her voice was very gentle and smooth, it was the same speed throughout. I think there were opportunities where she could have sped up. For instance, when she was talking about being in that room with the karaoke machine, showing her crazy side, she could have said, there were bags under my eyes. I didn't see anyone for days. I just kept doing the karaoke. By speeding up there, she gets across the emotion of craziness, of franticness a lot more. My second point for improvement for Azul would be the end of this speech. I don't think she ended with the correct message. She spoke about the 52 weeks. I think the key message here, which added the most value, was when she spoke about doing things with gusto, with passion, being proud and loud. I think that was the key essence of this speech. And as a speaker, you always want to end on your best point, on your most impactful point, because what is said lasts with your audience. And I felt that's where it was for Azul. So I would encourage her to end with that point so that we've got maximum impact and value coming to the audience instead of speaking about the 52 weeks. But overall, this really was a fantastic speech. I loved the imagery. I loved the body language, the eye contact, the gestures, the voice, and the personal story and message too. But if you can make those adjustments, Azul, of changing the speed of your voice to make it more engaging, and also change the ending so you can give maximum impact and value to the audience, I think this speech will be even better. And I am confident after your hours of practice, people are now lining up to hear you on the karaoke machine. Contest chair.
Thank you very, very much. We'll now have 1 minute again for the judges to mark their ballots.
Unmuting. Time.
Now we have contestant number 6. Contestant number 6, can you turn your sound on, please?
Can you hear me now, Pat?
I can hear you. Can you see the timer?
I can. Right. Yes, number one.
Yes.
I can indeed. Thank you.
Now, I can hear you well, and I can see you. So I will now announce you.
Okay.
Contestant number 6 is Nikki Brown. Nikki Brown.
A good speech will bring an audience on a journey. And that's what Asil brought us on today, with an undercurrent of a little masterclass in vocal variety. We had a lovely, interesting opening. We were then brought on a car journey. Then we were set up for great plans, only to have them shattered and we learned lessons. So that's the journey we were brought on. But I want to go back to the opening again. Asil clearly has an incredible range within her voice, and she treated us to more than one snippet of singing. And I think it might have been very powerful if she actually started her whole speech with that beautiful singing voice, and she could have sung her song and then gone straight into her opening. I think she would have been playing an ace there. She then brought us on her car journey. Now, in that car journey, we were treated to wonderful vocal imagery. We were looking out windows, we were seeing things, we were feeling the cold. So we were really using our senses. I thought that was a very clever way of bringing us and keeping us involved in her speech. She also set us up for great plans. We don't know what the plans were, but they weren't important because the next thing that happened was they were all dashed by the blizzard. And again, she kept us with her because that's current. We've all had plans that have suddenly been dashed. So she kept us as an audience with her. The next thing that happened were she laid out for lessons for us to learn. Now, this is the bit that I found most interesting. We'd gone on a very clear journey. And towards the end of her speech, we were definitely learning 3 definite things. And I would have liked to have seen them a little bit more signposted because I felt that they were very valuable lessons for us, and she linked them to things that were so current and so relevant. The first thing she did was she talked about Toastmasters and the importance of the tools, of the voice, of gestures, of eye contact. I would have liked her to have sat a little bit with that because that was a very good learning lesson and very clearly linked. The next thing she did was she attached it to current climate. You know, we're all having to learn new skills. So I would have loved her to have signposted that a little bit more. She talked about the karaoke, and this is where she really came into her own with her own incredible skill of her voice. So just at that last learning bit, I would have liked a little bit more signposting. But without a doubt, we definitely were treated to a masterclass with her voice. Asil has a phenomenal voice, and I think her X factor is her ability to weave it into a story. And I think we were treated to a well-structured, very well-delivered talk here this afternoon. Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you very, very much. Now we will have 2 minutes, 1 minute for the judges to mark our last contestant and another minute for them to complete their ballots. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tyler. Was that 2 minutes?
Yes, it was.
Thank you very much. I now call on the Chief Judge and the counters to go to the breakout room. Thank you very much, mainly to the contestants. Didn't they do well? Congratulations to all. You can now heave a sigh of relief, and we'll have the presentation, well, it's a virtual presentation of certificates of participation for each contestant. And I'll have a little chat with them, nothing too heavy. Gaia, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. First contestant was Sam Warner, and Gaia will hold up your certificate of participation. Later on, they will all be sent by email to you. Well done, Sam.
Thank you.
Sam, do you realise what a great achievement it is to actually get to the district final?
I do, yes. Considering probably about 700 people took part at club level, it's a great achievement to be down to the last 6, definitely.
How do you feel now?
I felt very shaky immediately after I finished. I think that's the adrenaline pumping around my body. And I'm sure in about an hour I'll feel very tired, but I'm fine now.
You look good anyway. Sam, in your interest, you've put down racing cars. Tell me what you know about racing cars.
Yes, well, I despite how I look, I'm a bit of a tomboy, and I used to race Jaguars. Obviously not the cat, the car, and I would go off to places like Silverstone and all sorts of Goodwood and all sorts of racetracks and race Jaguar cars, because why not?
Well, not exactly. I have to tell you, I was away at a particular thing in Australia a few years ago, and would you believe I got to drive a Ferrari, an absolute
nice.
Ferrari. It was brilliant. Can I ask the timer there to give me just one more minute, please? Sam, on your bio, you have one of your favorite quotes. It is, if you believe you can't do something, then you're right.
Absolutely, yeah. This is all about mindset, and whatever you believe and say to yourself or to others will come true. So if you say you cannot do something, then that will remain true. If you're standing at the edge of a precipice and you say, I'm terrified of heights, then yes, you'll carry on being terrified of heights. Whereas if you stand at that edge and say, I love heights, it's brilliant up here, it's really exciting, then that will change your world and you'll see it in a new way.
I'm not sure I agree with you, Sam. I did a skydive some years ago, and as I was sitting on the side of the plane, I just wanted to get back into the plane, but the guy in me pushed me. So I believe you when you say it. It didn't work for me. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you. And timer, I'll ask you to give each of the contestants 3 minutes, please. Our next contestant then was Jenny Britt. There's the cert that will be winging its way to you by email. In your bio, Jenny, you mentioned that winning various Latin and ballroom dances are one of your achievements. What's your favorite dance and what advantages do you think there are in dancing?
I think my favorite dance changed every year, I think. I love the quick step because it's so energetic and just so much fun. But I also love the cheeky cha-cha-cha. And I think the things about all kinds of dancing is it's great fun. It's a great way to do exercise whilst enjoying yourself. So it's just a double win as far as I'm concerned.
Well done. You were asked a question, what inspires you most? And you said, learning a new song each week to play for the street. What songs have you learned?
Oh, sadly, it's not myself learning the musical parts of it, but I did help out with the singing this last week. My neighbours have been creating a little band, and they've done such a great job of inspiring the street. So after the NHS clap finishes every Thursday night, they come out, they play a song, and we sing. And this week I sung I Dreamed a Dream along with a couple of other neighbours, but we've also have You Got a Friend in Me and a lot more uplifting ones in previous weeks. So they've promised a happy one this week.
Would you hate me if I said, would you give us a few bars of one of them?
Of one of them, I dreamed a dream in time gone by, when hope was high and life worth living. I'll leave it there.
I wish you wouldn't. It sounds beautiful. Jenny, you also put down that you were voted person most likely to become a vicar's wife at 16. Tell us about that.
Well, we got voted lots of things. Most likely to be Prime Minister, most likely to become a doctor. I got voted, apparently ironically, most likely to become a vicar's wife. I think I was in a slightly rebellious stage, let's say, at that time. And at that point, it was meant to be ironic. However, my current boyfriend was training to be a minister not long ago, so you never know.
You never do, Jenny. You surprise me. Thank you very, very much. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, contestant number 3 is Colm McGlade. Colm, there's your certificate of participation.
Thank you, Patricia.
Colm, how do you feel now that it's all over?
I suppose I feel a bit more relaxed than I was before it and a bit relieved. I mean, I enjoy taking part in contests. I get a great buzz out of it, no matter how I do. And it's just great to get to the final 6 and take part in a district final. And I just feel fulfilled, I suppose, having got there. And I feel relieved now that it's over.
Great. Is there anything you'd like to say to your club members and family and supporters?